Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story: cops pull me over for speeding, having used questionable methods to measure my speed. The second story: internet provider wants me to pay something I do not owe them, to let me pay what I actually owe them and end up getting nothing. The third story: my coworker took off his pants in front of the manager. The first story is: I only intended to follow the law. A little bit of an introduction, not necessary for the story, but might help you understand. I am and always have been a very fluent reader. Reading comes naturally to me, and I read literally everything from short stories to novels, from children's books to biographies, and this is important, manuals and instructions, including, when I have too much time on my hands, laws, rules, regulations, and legislations. I'm the guy who reads the fine print. I'm the guy who reads the disclaimer. Many a times this has come in handy. For example, when friends or family have some problem with their household equipment, computers, etc., they call me. Then when I've solved their problem, with usually a simple fix, they ask me how I did it, and it always surprises them when I tell them I just read the manual. When this happened, I was living in a small town and working in another town. Between those towns is about a 40-minute drive, if you stick to the speed limit. Me? Having driven this road back and forth every day for 3 years, I usually made the trip in 30 minutes. Once in 20 minutes, but that's not a story I'm willing to share just yet. It had been just a normal day at work, and I was on my way home, cruising slightly above the speed limit. Soon after I exit the town where I work, I notice a car behind me that's set to my cruise, overtaking the same cars as I do, following me but keeping a safe distance. I don't think much of it as it's not unusual. When I have just about 5 minutes left on my trip home, wouldn't you know it, I see blue lights flashing in my rearview mirror. That car following me for 25 minutes was an unmarked police vehicle. I pull over and watch the police car in my rearview mirrors. To my surprise, an officer steps out of the car from the back seat, walks over to me and asks me if I'm willing to come over to their car and have a little talk. I approved and walked with him to the car and sit in the middle of the back seat, and the officer that came to me sat beside me. To explain the situation a bit, there were 4 officers in that car, 2 in front and 2 in the back, and I was now crammed in between the 2 in the back. It so happens that the other officer in the back is a good friend of mine, so I have some info on what happened after I left the police car. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The officer at the wheel was, I later found out, the senior officer, and the one taking point in all of this. The other 3 just laid back and listened in. He starts by asking me if I knew why they pulled me over. I decided to answer vaguely and said that I had some idea. He goes on to tell me that they've been following me from my town of work to the point of where they stopped me, and that not once did I drive at or below the speed limit. I asked how he measured the speed of my car. Not all unmarked police vehicles in my country have a speed radar, and this one didn't. He tells me that they use the speedometer in their car, as well as his smart watch which has GPS in it. I had from the beginning of this encounter been very calm, and that plus my question as to how he measured my speed seemed to annoy this senior officer somehow. He then goes on to angrily tell me that I'll be written up and fined a hefty amount of money. Then, just as he's about to start writing me up, I ask him for his name and badge number. He begrudgingly gives both to me and I write them down. He then asks me what I'm going to do with it, and goes on to tell me that I cannot file a complaint against him, as he's not done anything but talk to me in a professional manner, and that the other 3 can bear witness of that. Following is my answer. Or roughly, I don't remember the exact words I used. Oh no, I have no intention of filing a complaint against you. Let me just go over things a bit. You told me that you followed me from town to town driving at over speed limit the whole time, right? Speed measure on your car's speedometer and your GPS watch, right? None of which is a legally certified device to measure the speed of other vehicles, let alone in the purpose of law enforcement. This whole time you drove over the speed limit, you did not have your blue flashing lights on. The laws in our country state that when a police vehicle does not have those lights turned on, the vehicle is considered just as any other vehicle on the road. Therefore, you've informed me in front of witnesses that you drove above the speed limit for an extended period of time. You just admitted to us that you broke the law. What I intend to do, if you write me up for this, is to go to your superior officer with this information. I will not object to you writing me up. You do your job the way you see fit. I do, however, find it questionable, to say the least, that you've not used any legally certified method to measure my speed. But as I said, you do what you believe your job is, and I will do the right thing as a citizen of this country, having information about laws being broken. The look on his face was priceless. His jaw lowered slowly as he looked at me dumbfounded, while he processed what I just said to him. Then his face suddenly turned some shade of maroon, and he grumbled that I was free to go, which I happily obliged. I later found out from my friend that he spent the rest of their way to the station cursing me to hell and back, furious that this stupid little piece of SH had actually read the traffic law. I never saw a ticket for this violation. The next story is, you do not want the money I owe you? Okay then. I'm a college student in a city 250 kilometers away from home, and both my parents are truck drivers, so they're also away from home most of the time. Because of that, sometimes I'm the one who has to handle some things that have to be done in person. In this case, I had to sign to my name a new internet provider because we were having problems with the previous one. I did that in December of the previous year, and the contract lasted until December last year. However, at some point in June, my parents decided to change to a different one because they were getting some very nice benefits and better speeds with it. But because we had signed for 1 year, we either had to keep paying the monthly bill until it expired or pay a compensation, which was more expensive, so we decided to just pay those months and forget about it. The problem started in November when I forgot to check my bank account balance, and since I do not have overdrafts active, the provider had not been able to charge the monthly fee because it was more than the money I had. Since they get to charge you more for late payments, they did not inform me of that until December when I went to the office to sign the needed documents to stop the service. They told me that I would have to pay both months and the late payment fees, which if I remember correctly were around 150 euros total. Obviously, I was peeved off because we had been paying 6 months for a service we were not using, but it was still my fault for not checking my balance, so I did not argue. Then they also told me that I had to return the equipment. Thing is, until recently, internet providers in my country did not really care that much if you returned the equipment because they used the cheapest options available. But when they realized they could charge you huge fees for not returning it, they all started asking for it. The problem with that was, since for the last 6 months we'd been using a different provider with their own equipment, we had stored somewhere around the house the old one, and since we had not been informed about having to return it after that, it ended up getting lost when we did some renovations in the house. After searching for the equipment the whole afternoon with no luck, I gave up and decided to read the contract to see how much I would have to pay. After going through the whole 10-page thing a few times, the only part related to equipment I could find was a single sentence, stating that when the contract is terminated, the customer must return the equipment, and if something is damaged or missing, company name has the right to charge the customer the value of said part as compensation. Since I'm a computer science student and know my tech, I know what they had given me cost around 50 euros retail price, so I went to the bank and took 200 euros to pay for everything. When I arrived, this is the conversation I had with the girl at the desk. Me, hi, we talked earlier today and I'm here to pay what I owe you. Girl, sure, that'll be 150 euro. Do you have the equipment with you? Me, about that? I'm sorry, but I think I've lost it. Girl, are you sure? If this is the case, we'll have to charge you 90 euros for it. Me, 90 euros? That's way too much. Girl, I'm sorry about that, but it's in the contract you've signed. Me, well, I've read the contract a few times, and I'm quite sure it says you can charge me what the equipment costs. Girl, exactly, and that'll be 90 euros. Me, I refuse to pay that unless I see a receipt or any other document that shows that the equipment you gave me costs 90 euros. Girl, I'll have to make a call for that. Excuse me for a minute. She goes to the back room and calls what I guess was her manager, and after some muffled phone talk, she came back. Girl, sorry for the wait. I've been informed that I cannot give you the information you're requesting. Me, well then I'm going to pay you the 150 euros and we can terminate the contract. Girl, sorry, but you have to pay the full 240 euros to do that. Me, I'm not going to pay 90 euros for a brand and model router that costs no more than 50 euros in any store, and much less for one that you've bought in bulk for even less than that. Girl, then we will have to take legal action for the 240 euros and you will be blacklisted. Me, I'm not saying I will not pay the 2 months I legally owe you, I just won't pay the 90 euros without proof that that's what the equipment costs. I have the 150 euros here. I proceed to put the 150 euros on the counter. Girl, sorry, but the amount you owe us is 240 euros, and we cannot terminate the contract if you don't pay the full amount. Me, are you saying you won't take the 150 euros? Girl, exactly. Me, okay. I took my money and left. After that, I wrote an email to the company explaining that I wanted to pay the 2 months I owed them, but that I would not pay anything else unless I had a receipt to have some written proof, in case they actually decided to take the legal action. I did not get a reply. A few weeks later, I got a call asking about the 240 euros, and I told them that I was busy at the moment, but that they could send me an email with the details. I never heard back from them. The last story is, need me to adhere to the dress code right now? Enjoy the fallout. I was reminded of this story from my work by one of my coworkers. It's been maybe 5 to 7 years since it happened. Where I work, there's a semi-strict dress code that needs to be adhered to, so we look presentable when going to customers' houses. The minor details are more or less negotiable depending on who's our manager that day. We have a normal manager we see almost daily, but if he's off or if it's a weekend, someone else subs in. The day this happened was a Saturday, and our regular manager was off, so the duty manager for the day happened to be Mr. Harday, whom no one liked, and he made it his life goal to make all the techs miserable. When we walked in the door, we had to pass through the manager's office to get to our meeting area. My coworker Tim, name changed, walked in the door that was to the manager's office with everything looking right on his uniform, but his shirt untucked. The following conversation took place. Mr. Harday, your shirt should be tucked in. Tim, absolutely, and I'll do that when I set my gear down and go to the bathroom. Mr. Harday, no, you need to show up for work ready to work, not show up and get ready on my time. Tim, okay, let me set my stuff down and I'll go right to the bathroom and tuck it in for you. Mr. Harday, no, you're going to tuck it in right now before you walk another step into my building. Tim, right now? Mr. Harday, right now. So my coworker did as instructed, unbuttoned his pants and pulled them all the way down to his ankles, and proceeded to smooth out his shirt, and then reach all the way down and pull his pants all the way back up and rebutton them. From there, he immediately walked outside and called the HR hotline, and told him his manager on duty just forced him to undo his pants and semi-strip in front of him in his personal office, and wouldn't allow him to go to the bathroom to tuck his shirt in, that he felt weird and uncomfortable to be around Mr. Harday, and didn't know if he had any ulterior motives. None of us are privy to what exactly happened from that phone call on, but we do know that he got laterally moved, from being a tech manager to the safety team, where he was no longer in charge of any subordinates. I'll make an edit to iron out some details or important things I forgot. Our job is very much union-based, and as such, the union book is the law of the land, so language and actions have to be very specific so as not to draw ire from the union nor the business. Tim was raised in a union household by someone who was very involved in their union, so he has a very keen knowledge on how to manipulate things well within the trappings of the union handbook. He did this whole thing not next to the boss's desk, but within line of sight of the door coming in, and the door to the meeting room, so there were visual witnesses from the meeting room and people who trickled into work behind him, who literally walked through the entire ordeal. So there were plenty of witnesses to corroborate. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.